Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Sam Babyak, and I'm the Program Director for the Writers League of Texas. I am here with Teresa Carvajal Ravet, the owner at Sententia Vera Cultural Hub in Dripping Springs, Texas. And so thank you so much for joining us, Teresa.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and so we really want to get to know more about you and your bookstore. So we'll start with you. And how did you get into the bookstore business?
So I'm a Spanish linguist and educator, and at the onset of my career after graduate school, I experienced the need for readily available titles in the foreign language and translation editions, as well as bilingual editions. And that was when it was a time where bilingual editions were not common, but one or two titles, especially in the children's book world, it was an experiment by some of the publishers. So that was my motivation to find out a little bit more about the indie bookstore industry and becoming an independent bookseller. So I went my first time in New York City, went to the book convention conference, and I was hooked. So, and I was really motivated and what's the word that I want to use? Hopeful that the foreign language book, the translated copies, and the bilingual copies would be more readily available, especially if there were bookstore owners that were willing to risk some shelf space to such editions.
Yeah. Wow, that's a really fascinating and inspiring story. And the fact that you saw this need for these sorts of books and you said, I'm just gonna make that space myself, that's really amazing. And so what would you say the responsibility of a bookstore is today?
So my mission as a bookstore owner, and I think of more bookstores as we progress into a more global community, as opposed to just simply our local community, is to cultivate that curiosity and wonder of communicating and engaging between different languages and different cultures. I think the U.S. is a perfect space in which all of these different cultures and ethnicities and languages can truly be highlighted as positive instead of the negative rhetoric that we're hearing about foreign and global and all of that. So I think our responsibility is to introduce and cultivate, foster that genuine community relationship and develop that relationship among our customers and readers, and really try and introduce them to something new. I know we all have our favorite genres, right? And we try to stick with our favorite author, but I like to sneak in those ethnic authors and women ethnic authors into the mix, and some of our readers are pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, that's so amazing. And I grew up in a border town in Texas, and that idea of finding translations and other languages and books that are bilingual and have both sides, I think that is just so important. And it's amazing that you're doing that in Dripping Springs,
Right, of all places.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, Texas, it's Texas.
Right.
Every area is just so different from the other.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so what can you describe your bookstore in 3 words? And you can talk about the community, what you're doing and cultivating, this space for translation and other books. And so, yeah, if you could just describe it in 3 words.
So the 3 words I would choose would be multilingual, multicultural, and women focused or women oriented, right? I think women have a unique experience and recognition of the need to learn from the other, and other I would capitalize the O in other. We see the positive and the benefit and advantages to being curious about the unknown, right? As opposed to really pushing back on that. So my community here in Dripping Springs, while the rest of the area sees Dripping Springs as a rural community, yes, the demographics are largely white, older, affluent community. Since opening the brick and mortar here with this focus of multicultural, multilingual, women focused, ethnic women in particular, or ethnic women writers in particular, I can't tell you how many times a new community member comes in just curious to see what it is, what it's about, the hub that is, and experiencing their sigh of relief that something like this exists in their neighborhood, that they no longer have to travel. I know it's maybe 10 miles to South Austin from here, but that they would no longer have to travel at the very least 10 miles to go into Austin to have a space in which the commitment is, or the mission is, to finding out new ideas, new cultures, more progressive, global view. It's inspiring to have that and to experience that on a daily basis. When people were coming in just to come in, pre-COVID, obviously. I still get those now through the pandemic once in a while. So I know it's still relevant and needed out here. And Dripping Springs is growing. It's one of the areas that it has seen population growth, one of the fastest ones occurring out here in the we're a border, what I call a border town, in the sense that we border Hays and Travis County. Our neighbors may be in Travis, and right across the street, they'll be in Hays County. So that border identity, I think, is also relevant here. And so with that growth, we're experiencing a lot of new community members from all over the nation and the world. I enjoy knowing that the space is where people will come to meet each other from different parts of the nation and the world, and in order to share their multicultural experience. So yes, I don't know if that answered your question, but that's where I'm led. And it just, I mean, it feels good, right? I mean, it feels good that you have created a space in which people truly enjoy experiencing the other, like I mentioned.
Yeah, and you're doing that, in a community that it sounds like didn't have something like that before, and that is just so monumental and important and so awesome. And it was inspiring just hearing you talk about it.
Thank you.
And so, yeah, so you've touched a little bit about this being like a cultural hub, and it's more than just a bookstore. And so I'm wondering if you can expand on that and just to tell us, what exactly this hub is, and also maybe what your favorite section of the store is.
Okay. So, and I can't tell you how many of these curious community members come in and say, what exactly are you?
Yeah.
And it takes a while. They tell you to work on your real quick elevator pitch all the time. And I haven't seemed to have gathered a cohesive identity for the hub. But the hub is a combination, a blending of a bookshop with a coffee bar and co-working shared space. So you can probably find something that you need at some point in your day at the hub. And the reason I call it cultural hub is because I do want to give that perception that you're coming in here and you're going to find something diverse and that you're going to feel included, regardless of your background or your life span or your life path. You're going to find something here, whether it's a book, whether it's a coffee drink, whether it's a co-worker, collaborative project, whether it's a workshop or a meeting or a presentation of whatever. It can and will happen at the Cultural Hub.
Yeah. Cool. And so besides books, what's one thing that you love to see customers buy?
The local creatives, what I call the creatives, their art, their photography. So we have pottery, greeting cards, photography, pieces of artwork. So for them to really find, for people to just find that their neighbor has created something that is unique, that you won't find anywhere else. So I really like to engage the co-working space, not only with those traditional co-workers, which are either entrepreneurs that are launching a startup or techies that are using the space as a second home away from home to do their engineering work, but also for creatives to come and either create here or display the creative art here as well. And it's a mix where community members either recognize pieces from their neighbor or friend or a fellow whatever classmate, and then those that are completely pleasantly surprised that their neighbor does this, right? So that's interesting to know and to find out when people say, oh, I know her or I know him, but I didn't know he did this, right?
Amazing. So you're not only, fostering a safe space for people to find new books and expose themselves to like different cultures and languages, but you're also giving a space to artists to not only like do their art, but also, to expose their art to other people. And that's really amazing. That's awesome work. Okay, and so this is our last question for the day. Is there anything else that you'd like folks to know about your bookstore?
One of the things that the COVID pandemic has introduced to, or reintroduced, because it's not new, it has reintroduced community members and readers is the audiobook. I think the audiobook has done a tremendous resurgence, and everybody likes being read to, I think, especially when you have a good reader and animated.
Yeah.
I really, really want to motivate those avid readers with the feel of the book to re-engage with being read to, and give audiobooks a glance or a try again, find that joy again to having been read to. So that's another part of the bookstore that I think a physical bookstore doesn't really highlight and focus, because you have the actual books there, but the audiobook seems to be forgotten, except for, I think, like I mentioned before, the pandemic has really refocused our attention in that route.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Teresa. It was really wonderful meeting you.
Thank you for having me, and good to meet you too.
Thank you.